Thanks for having us on the show. Miri's Moving Day is a children's picture book. We have it, quote unquote, formally marketed as for ages 3 to 8. It's about a young mixed race Chinese Jewish girl who is confronting a big change in life, moving day. She's been living with her Chinese grandparents and her own parents for quite some time. And with everything packed up and ready to go, she's in some big feelings, big emotions. And it's her other grandfather, Zadie, Jewish grandfather, with Yeye, who go out on an ice cream trip. And I'll pause there for Stephanie to carry us on.
It really is a heartfelt story. As Adam said, Miri isn't happy about facing this big change in her life. And so when Zadie comes to pick her up, Yeye, her Chinese grandfather, joins them in the car. And they do make a stop for ice cream on the way to her new apartment. And the blurb on the book, because we don't want to give too much away, says Miri will miss the Chinese lions in front of her apartment building. What will happen to her now that it's moving day? And what happens is Zadie and Yeye have some surprises that are going to help her feel at home in her new apartment.
We've also have the expression of a slice of life story, right? It's nothing so dramatic or climatic. It's moving day. But at the same time, by bringing in these grandfather figures, bringing in Miri's background and culture, there are all these really deep nuggets of culture spread out throughout the story. That's what we're excited about in this book, and that's what we're excited for our readers. Stephanie mentions the stone lions, and I want to bring in the fact that these are visual cues. People who are familiar with Chinese culture may see at restaurants, walking in various urban settings. At the same time, what we see once or twice a year, blink of an eye, a lion that appears at a Lunar New Year parade. What does it really mean? What can it mean for individuals in the culture, and see how it plays out in this story?
Miri has a funny backstory. You did say Adam. I'm sorry.
Please. When she says Stephanie or Adam, will always know it's both of us.
We finish each other's sentences. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. The idea for Miri came from a question that one of my grandchildren asked at the dinner table when he said, "Can I be Chinese and Jewish?" And his father said to him, "Yes, because you are." That simple answer, you are. But I realized that it would be great for there to be more books letting him see that, yes, not only he is, but others are, and we could read about them. And so Adam and I wrote a story about a boy and his two grandmothers. And we love that story. And it's gotten some real champagne rejections. It came very close in one place. It went all the way to acquisitions. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we think it's a great story. But after one of the champagne rejections, we thought, what if we flip it? What if we make it a little girl with two grandfathers? So then we didn't do it the same story. We were trying to imagine a different story, but with a Chinese Jewish main character. But now it was a little girl. And somehow it seemed that what was going to happen to her was she was going to be moving. And that's really how that evolved.
Stephanie will recall this, that the very first attempt we made 4 years ago to write about a mixed race Chinese Jewish child character, it was a young boy, had a lot to do around the focal point of the story was around his identity and people calling his identity, bringing it to light in a quote unquote negative way, right? Aspects of pseudo bullying slash teasing slash just not feeling good around their identity. One of the champagne rejections was like, this is a good story. These are good characters. These are good elements of culture that you're bringing in. But just could we ask, could we imagine where the young person's um, identity isn't made to feel like a bad thing, and then it opened up the door completely. Then it's yeah, then it's just life in general. It's waking up, it's going to school, it's coming home, it's a martial arts class, it's a ballet recital. Your imagination really could go anywhere. Stephanie and I want to say probably have done 4 or 5 other instances, again, slice of life incidences, and I don't want to name too many because we're still holding on to these manuscripts as
Let's
possible
keep that.
dreams. Yeah, but we're really leaning into this brand, if you will, as co-authors. The Chinese Jewish American experience pops up more than we think about, right? And that's what we're doing with our writing and with these slice of life stories is just honing in for a quick few minute reads. And if you do hone in, what happens? How does it make us feel as readers, whether we're the child themselves, their caregivers, their grandparents, etc.
Miri is not our first collaboration. The children's book we described is not our first collaboration. We initially met in a student-teacher context, and then Adam had the idea that we might present together on a panel to the local Asian American Bar Association. We both have legal backgrounds. Adam's still a lawyer. And so we decided to have lunch, and honestly, I went to the lunch to tell him no, I couldn't do it because I was too busy. But I adore him, as you can tell, and so I ended up saying yes because he's such a joy to work with. And our presentation was well received, and then we did another at a National Humanities Conference, and then we wrote a law review article. So we really have been able to do some work together prior to launching into the children's book world.
Collaboration is a technical term. I know I'm not overstepping or overspeaking. Like Stephanie is my family. We did meet when I just finished my first year of law school, and Stephanie was my social justice law professor in a summer course. And yeah, that's literally how we met. Reading textbooks she's co-authored and just being really inspired by her approach to feminism, anti-racism work. And yeah, so when we when upon graduating, I was in Hawaii, Stephanie was teaching in Hawaii for the summer, but we're both here in San Francisco, and I'm San Francisco born and raised. I felt very fortunate in kind of the virtual knock on the door situation to approach me on any matter of things, conferences, writing, just me just trying to further my own kind of contributions to society, if you will. That Stephanie has been a mentor for 14 years now. And what happened in all of that, I became a parent, I adopted a child. Stephanie's family has grown as well. And really, we sat down for the very first time at the beginning of 2020 and said, hey, let's approach this children's book activity world together. And then the pandemic happened like a few weeks after that. So that's how we went through the pandemic as well. It was like every week, every other week, and then every month as things extended out. But that was how I approached the pandemic. That's how I survived it. That's how I kept my sanity. It's through this work, but so often those who will share and say, when you love the work, it's not work anymore, right?
No, and on the technical side, Adam dragged me. I write in WordPerfect, and he dragged me into the world of Google Docs so that we could be on a Zoom call, but also writing in a document together where like he could write a portion, I could write a portion, we could merge it, or we could have something and we could edit together. It really makes the collaboration much, much more possible.
Yeah, so I mentioned the stone lions. I do have 2 lions tattooed on my shoulders. They're both facing outwards. Stone lions show up in a lot of East Asian, South Asian, Southeast Asian cultures guarding significant places. So it could be a place of worship, but it's evolved to be places of home, places of business and work, dining again, just people wanting to draw attention. And I won't get too deep into like religious aspects of the lions, but they really have become just widely culturally accepted in common places. I used to also be a lion dancer back in high school. And so, you put on it's a two human sport. Someone's always the head and then someone's always going to be the rear end. And it's a combination of martial arts, it's a combination of dance because you got to keep rhythm to the drums and the cymbals. And there's a spiritual aspect as well, that these lions are still doing their original duty, which was fighting off evil, fighting off bad spirits, bad luck, if you will. So yeah, I think bringing that representation to the story was significant for me. Again, recognition that the stone lions exist in society, in common American society as well, but folks not really quite knowing what they represent and what they're there for. And so in our story, Miri does have a pretty sentimental connection to them, but I won't spoil why or how.
And for me, my own grandfather was extremely important in my life. My mother couldn't drive, didn't drive. Even she didn't really work outside the home when I was little, but she couldn't drive. My father was at work, and so it was my grandfather who picked me up at school and drove me to doctor's appointments and took me to do whatever it was I was doing. And this is a little spoiler because another thing that's important in the book is a mezuzah. And I've always had a mezuzah in every place that I've lived. It's a symbol of home to me. It becomes a symbol to Miri as well.
Stephanie and I were both able to make our book dedications. I did ultimately dedicate it to my yaya and my mama, my Cantonese grandparents. My mother's side's from Burma, but again, being born and raised in San Francisco, my father and his parents' migration to San Francisco was fleeing the Cultural Revolution and communism in China. So to call San Francisco home, also a part of the immigration journey was the multi-generational household. And that's what in this story as well. And really wanted to normalize that for whatever reasons. We don't have to say it's a matter of race or poverty or whatnot, but that we can and can choose to be happy homes with multi generations, with extended family members, and bringing that into play as well. Lastly, I think that there are a lot of Chinese books on the market, Chinese characters, Chinese families in modern American kind of picture book culture. At the same time, I really was adamant about making these Cantonese Chinese characters. Unfortunately, I do see a Chinese government that has cracked down on Cantonese as a language and as a culture. Again, a lot of politics behind that, but San Francisco's Chinatown is unique in that way. It was a settlement of Cantonese refugees, and the fact that I get to preserve a bit of that culture and language in something like Miri's Moving Day is extremely personal and sentimental.
It didn't even feel unusual to me. I love that about the book too. But I guess, I mean, it's my lived reality. I am in a family like that, where the other grandma is mama and the other grandfather is yaya. And I was asked why was I not Bubby. But my grandmother, who was also important to me, like my grandfather, was Bubby. So I couldn't see doing that. And I wouldn't be Popo because I have other grandchildren. And their other grandmother is Abuelito, Abuelita. So I wanted a name that everybody could call me. So I'm just Grandma. So my Bubby is still my Bubby, and then she gets to be that. But in the family that I have, where my children are Jewish, my grandchildren are Jewish and Chinese American, we all love each other. It's just we get along. We celebrate holidays together. It's wonderful. I'm so lucky.
It was easy to go there, right? Have the conflict be these actual people, the characters that were written in. I think that was the obvious approach. And as creatives, I think we challenge ourselves to not go with the obvious, to push ourselves a little further. In that way, we also evolve and grow as writers. Unfortunately, I think most of us live under the patriarchy, and I've witnessed it my whole life. I've seen it in the men in my family, in my communities and circles, where the patriarchy unfortunately breeds this toxic masculinity. I feel very privileged that, again, a Chinese grandfather, a Southeast Asian Burmese grandfather, their languages weren't the same. Their cultures were close enough, but again, not the same. You have Buddhism on one side, and then you have more local, like deity worship on my Chinese side. And yet, between my brother and I, these two men worked together. Literally, one grandfather worked for the other grandfather's restaurant. And no, it wasn't a Chinese restaurant, it was actually an American diner. But yeah, like they took turns for me and my brother picking us up from school, taking us home, keeping us at the restaurant, watching over us. And it was beautiful to see that their common tongue then was broken English, and still they navigated their new family this way with me and my brother as young children in the middle. So again, I think bringing in a lot of the personal into this writing, but yeah, great to also bring in like these positive role models, these grandparents in both of our lives.
So the moving day is a huge change. Moving is often listed up there along with death as one of the more traumatic things that humans face. But change is a part of life, even when it's a change we don't welcome. And change can bring surprises and delights. So I hope that's something that readers will take.
This mission of increasing visibility of diverse families is a goal that probably should never end. It's not just who you are ethnically, racially, culturally, but it is also who takes care of you, takes various forms that still need broader representation in all aspects of media, children's book world included. So, yeah, that grandfathers, grandmothers can step in sometimes as primary caregivers, even if the parents are still in the picture, and that shouldn't carry any kind of shame or judgment to it, right? We are all just trying to live and survive and thrive at the end of the day. So back to normalizing all of that, the diverse families, the multi-generation of it all.
I'm still on, I call it Twitter, I can't call it X. I'm still there. Every day I wonder whether I should be there. But I've met so many writers on that platform that I haven't been willing to quite give it up. And it has been a great source of information for me. I'm a member of the Writers Grotto in San Francisco, and I've learned about it from that platform. But I am also on Blue Sky, which is growing a writers community and starting to connect with people there. And you mentioned that you're on Instagram, so I visit over there once in a while. I do not understand that app. You'll have to give me a little boot camp on Instagram. But I do have a web page. That's probably the easiest way to follow what I'm up to.
You could technically find me on X under Adam Ryan Chang, more active on Instagram as Adam Ryan Chang. There you would find pictures of me, my family, my new dog, and then technically evidence of my dibble dabble into graphic illustration. And yeah, would love and welcome the follow and grow this community again, whether you're a writer, whether you're a diverse family yourself, as I proudly identify to be. It would be great to stay connected.